The Grand Archives Museum stood at the heart of Celestine Prime, a neutral world where all species could meet in peace. The building stretched toward the purple sky like a frozen wave, its walls made of crystal that changed color with the light. Inside, the greatest treasures of 1,000 civilizations waited for visitors to admire them. Jake Holloway walked through the main hall with his hands in his pockets. He was 32 years old, average height, with brown hair that never stayed flat no matter how much he tried. He wore the simple gray uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, and he looked exactly like what he was supposed to be, a junior diplomat on his first major assignment. Around him, aliens of every shape and size moved through the museum. Some floated. Some walked on dozens of legs. Some had no legs at all and simply rolled across the polished floor. Jake had been in the galaxy for 3 years now, ever since humanity made first contact. And he still felt wonder every time he saw the diversity of life that existed among the stars. "Please. This way," said Director Valanis Koth, the museum's head curator. Valanis was a Centauri, tall and thin with silver skin and 4 arms that moved constantly as she spoke. Her voice was warm and full of pride. "We have prepared a special viewing for your delegation." Jake followed along with the other humans in his group. There were 6 of them in total, all diplomats and scientists chosen to represent Earth at the cultural exchange. None of them knew why Jake had really been sent. The director led them through a series of security doors, each one more impressive than the last. They passed displays of ancient starships, preserved remains of extinct species, and weapons from wars that had ended before Earth's sun was born. Finally, they entered a small chamber with a single display case in the center. "This," Valanis said, her 4 arms spreading wide, "is our most treasured artifact, the oldest object in the known universe." Jake looked at the display case, and his heart stopped. Inside, resting on a cushion of blue light, was a sword. It was simple in design, about 3 feet long, with a straight blade and a handle wrapped in dark material. The metal had a faint shimmer to it, like starlight trapped in steel. "We found this sword floating in the void between galaxies," Valanis explained. "Our scientists have studied it for 10,000 years. The metal is unlike anything in our records. And the age." She paused for effect. "Carbon dating and quantum decay analysis both confirm it. This sword is 14.2 billion years old." One of the human scientists gasped. "That's older than the galaxy itself. Older than most of the universe," Valanis agreed. "We believe it comes from a previous cosmic cycle, a universe that existed before the Big Bang created our own. How it survived, we do not know. Who made it? We cannot guess. It is the greatest mystery in the Grand Archives." The other humans crowded around the display, asking questions and taking readings with their instruments. But Jake stayed back. He stared at the sword with an expression that no one noticed. His face had gone pale. His hands, still in his pockets, had curled into fists. He knew that sword. He knew it very well. "Is something wrong, human?" Valanis asked, noticing that Jake had not moved. Jake blinked and seemed to come back to himself. He let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "No, nothing's wrong. It's just, I recognize that sword." Valanis tilted her head. "You recognize it? That is not possible. This artifact predates your species by billions of years." "Yeah," Jake said quietly. "I know what everyone thinks." The other humans had stopped talking. They were all looking at Jake now. One of them, a woman named Katie Brennan, who worked in xenorchaeology, had a strange look on her face. Like she knew something the others did not. "What do you mean? You recognize it?" One of the diplomats asked. Jake took a slow breath. He had hoped this moment would never come. He had been sent to confirm whether the artifact was real, and it was. Now he had to decide what to do about it. "That sword," he said, pointing at the display case, "was a gift. I got it at my graduation ceremony." Silence filled the chamber. Valinus made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is a very creative joke, human, but perhaps not appropriate for such a sacred artifact." "I'm not joking." Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small pendant that hung around his neck. It was made of the same metal as the sword, the same impossible shimmer, the same faint glow of trapped starlight. Valinus went very still. Her forearms froze in place. "What is that?" "It's a piece of the same metal," Jake said. "They were made together, the sword and this pendant, 14 billion years ago. The sword was a gift for finishing my studies. The pendant was a promise that I would carry our memory into the next cycle." He looked at the sword through the glass, and his eyes held something old, something tired, something that had seen more than any 32-year-old should ever see. "That sword belongs to me," Jake said softly. "I've been looking for it for a very long time." The chamber erupted into chaos. The diplomats demanded explanations. The scientists ran scans on Jake's pendant. Valinus called for security, then called them off, then called them again. Everyone was talking at once. Only Katie Brennan stayed calm. She walked over to Jake and stood beside him, looking at the sword. "You weren't supposed to tell them," she said quietly. "I know. The council is going to be very upset. I know that too." Katie sighed. "Well, it's done now. We might as well see it through." Jake nodded. He looked at the sword one more time, remembering the day he had received it, remembering the face of his mentor, remembering the warning that had been given along with the gift. Carry this into the next universe, and never forget what we were. He had carried it. He had never forgotten Dot, and now, after 14 billion years, he had finally found his sword again. The question was, what would the galaxy do when they learned the truth about humanity? They moved Jake to a secured research wing deep inside the museum. The room was cold and white, filled with machines that hummed and blinked with colored lights. Armed guards stood at every door, their weapons pointed at the floor but ready to rise at any moment. Ambassador Rintasari arrived within the hour. He was a Valdari, one of the oldest known species in the galaxy. His people had built empires when most other races were still learning to make fire. He stood 7 feet tall, with deep blue skin and eyes that glowed like burning gold. Right now, those eyes were filled with anger. "This is an insult," Rin said, his voice like thunder in the small room. "The Voldori have existed for 12 million years. We have records going back to the birth of our first son. And you expect us to believe that humans, who discovered space travel only a century ago, are older than the universe itself?" Jake sat at a metal table, his pendant placed in front of him. He looked calm, almost bored, which only made Rin angrier. "I don't expect you to believe anything," Jake said. "I'm just telling you the truth." Director Valinus stepped forward. She had been running tests on the pendant for the past hour, and her silver face showed confusion and fear in equal measure. "Ambassador, I must report my findings. The pendant is genuine. The metal matches the sword exactly, down to the smallest particle. Furthermore, the quantum signature suggests they were created at the same time, in the same place." "Then the humans somehow faked the readings," Rin insisted. "With respect, Ambassador, that is not possible. We are talking about quantum-level analysis. No species in the known galaxy has the technology to fake such results." Rin fell silent, but his golden eyes never left Jake's face. Katie Brennan stood in the corner of the room, watching everything. She had not said much since the revelation in the display chamber. Now she stepped forward and placed her hand on Jake's shoulder. "He's telling the truth," she said. "And he's not the only one who knows it." "What do you mean?" Valinus asked. Katie took a deep breath. There are others on Earth who remember. Not many. A few hundred, maybe 1,000. We call ourselves the Keepers. We carry the memories of what humanity used to be before we chose to start over. Jake nodded slowly. What the galaxy knows about humans is only the recent chapter. The part where we evolved on Earth, discovered fire, built cities, and eventually reached the stars. But that's not where our story begins. He stood up from the table and walked to the window. Outside, the purple sky of Celestin Prime stretched toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, billions of stars burned in the darkness, each one younger than the sword in the museum. Humanity existed before this universe was born, Jake said. We were part of what we call the first expansion, civilizations that grew and flourished in the previous cosmic cycle, before the last Big Bang. Rin made a scoffing sound. The Big Bang was the beginning of everything. There was nothing before it. There was everything before it, Jake corrected him. Another universe, just as vast as this one. Maybe more vast. It lasted for 100 billion years, and during that time, countless species rose and fell. Humans were one of the oldest. We had time to learn things that this universe has not yet discovered. We built wonders that would seem like magic to you now. If that is true, Valinus said slowly, then what happened? How did you survive the end of a universe? Jake's expression grew distant. We had warning. We knew the great collapse was coming, the moment when the old universe would fold in on itself and be reborn as something new. Most species did not believe the warnings. Others tried to fight it, which was foolish. Some chose to transcend, to leave physical form behind and become something else entirely. And humans? Katie added, we chose to sleep. Jake turned back to face them. We encoded ourselves into the quantum fabric of reality itself. Our bodies, our memories, our knowledge, all of it written into the foundation of existence. When the new universe was born, we were born with it. We slept for billions of years, waiting for conditions to become right. Then, about 300,000 years ago, we woke up on a small blue planet orbiting a young yellow star. The room was completely silent. Even the machines seemed to have stopped humming. We woke up with nothing, Jake continued. No technology, no cities, no ships. Just our bodies and our minds and the faintest echo of what we used to be. Most of us had forgotten everything. Only a few retained clear memories of the old universe. The rest had to start over from the beginning, learning to make tools and build shelters and grow food. Why? Rin demanded. If you had such power, why give it up? Why become weak? Jake smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because power is not the same as meaning. We had already done everything that power could offer. We had built empires that spanned galaxies. We had shaped the laws of physics to suit our needs. We had lived for millions of years and seen wonders that you cannot imagine. And in the end, we realized something important. He picked up his pendant and held it in his palm, looking at the shimmer of ancient metal. We realized that we had forgotten how to simply live. We had become so focused on creation and expansion and control that we lost touch with the small things. The feel of grass under our feet. The taste of food when you're truly hungry. The joy of learning something new when you know nothing at all. Jake looked at Valinus, then at Rin. We chose to start over because we wanted to experience existence from the beginning again. We wanted to remember what it felt like to be young, to be curious, to be amazed by the universe. And so we buried our old power and our old technology, and we became humans as you know us, newcomers, explorers, the species that asks too many questions. Valinus sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Her forearms hung limp at her sides. This changes everything we know about history. No, Jake said firmly. It changes nothing unless you let it. We kept this secret for 300,000 years. We could have kept it forever. But now you know, and that means you have a choice. You can treat us differently, fear us, worship us, hate us for lying. Or you can let us be what we chose to be, just another species trying to find its place among the stars. Rin's golden eyes narrowed. Why tell us now? Why reveal this secret after so long? Jake looked at the pendant in his hand. Because I found my sword. And once I saw it, I knew I could not pretend anymore. That sword was given to me by someone I loved very much, someone who did not survive the Great Collapse. When I saw it in your museum, I could not walk away and leave it there without explanation. The room fell silent again. And in that silence, something shifted. The anger in Rin's eyes faded, replaced by something that might have been understanding. The fear in Valanis's face softened into wonder. Katie stepped forward. The question now is, what happens next? The holographic recreation chamber was the largest room in the museum. Its walls were covered with projectors capable of creating images so real that visitors often forgot they were not actually standing in the places they saw. Today, the chamber had been cleared of all visitors. Only a small group remained. Jake, Katie, Director Valanis, Ambassador Rin, and a handful of scientists who had been sworn to secrecy. Are you sure about this? Katie asked quietly. She stood next to Jake near the center of the room. Her face troubled. Jake nodded. They need to see it. Words are not enough. They need to understand what we were and why we chose to become what we are now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, no larger than a coin. It was made of the same ancient metal as his pendant and the sword. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols that no living language could translate. This is a memory keeper, Jake explained to the watching aliens. It holds recordings from the old universe. True recordings, stored at the quantum level, impossible to fake or alter. What you are about to see happened 14.2 billion years ago, just before the Great Collapse ended everything we knew. He placed the device on the floor and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room began to change. The walls dissolved into light. The floor became transparent. And suddenly, they were standing somewhere else entirely. They floated in space above a galaxy that no longer existed. It was larger than the Milky Way, its spiral arms burning with the light of 1 trillion stars. Ships moved between those stars, vast structures that made the greatest vessels of the current age look like toys. And on a platform that seemed to hang in the void itself, a ceremony was taking place. Thousands of humans stood in rows, wearing robes of white and silver. They were young and old, tall and short, every variety of human that have ever lived. At the front of the gathering, on a raised stage, a smaller group waited. Among them was Jake, but this was not the Jake that Valanis and Rin knew. This Jake was younger, barely more than a boy. His face was bright with excitement and pride. He wore the white robes of a student, and his eyes shone with tears that he was trying hard to hide. "This is my graduation," Jake said softly. His voice came from beside them, the current Jake watching his past self. "I had just finished my studies in universal architecture." "Universal architecture?" Valanis asked. "The science of shaping cosmic laws. How to adjust the speed of light. How to modify the strength of gravity. How to write new equations into the fabric of reality itself." Jake's voice was distant, lost in memory. "It took me 60,000 years to complete my training." Rin stared at him. 60,000 years? We lived a long time in those days. On the stage, an older human stepped forward. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that floated around her head like a cloud. Her face was kind but serious, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the entire gathering without any amplification. "Today we honor those who have completed the path of knowledge, she said. They have learned to touch the foundations of existence. They have earned the right to shape reality itself. And they have sworn to use this power only for creation, never for destruction. She turned to the young Jake and held out her hands. In them rested a sword. The same sword that now sat in a museum 14 billion years later. "Jake of the Northern Cluster," she said, "I give you this blade as a symbol of your achievement." It was forged in the heart of a dying star. Its metal was shaped by the laws you have learned to command. Carry it always, and remember what you have sworn. The young Jake took the sword with trembling hands. "I will remember," he said. The older woman smiled and placed a hand on his cheek. "I know you will. You have a good heart, Jake. That is more important than all the knowledge in the universe." Suddenly, an alarm began to sound. The peaceful scene shattered. The stars in the background flickered, and a wave of darkness began to spread across the galaxy like a stain. "The collapse is accelerating," someone shouted. "We have less time than we thought." The ceremony dissolved into chaos. Humans ran in every direction, shouting orders, activating machines, preparing for the end. The older woman grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him close. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "The sleeper ships are almost ready. You must go now. Take your sword and your pendant into the next universe. Be our memory. Be our promise that we existed. What about you?" The young Jake asked, his voice breaking. The woman shook her head. "I am too old, too connected to this reality. If I tried to sleep, I would not wake. But you will. You and the others will carry us forward. You will live again, and when you do, you will remember this moment. You will remember me. Mother, please, go, Jake." She pushed him toward the waiting ships. "Live, start over. And when you find that sword again, remember that I loved you." The memory froze. The image of the woman, her hand raised in farewell, hung in the air like a painting. And then it faded, and they were back in the empty chamber of the Grand Archives Museum. Jake stood with his head bowed. His shoulders shook slightly. Katie moved to his side and took his hand, saying nothing. Velanus wiped tears from her silver face with all four hands. Even Rin, the proud ambassador of the Valdery, looked shaken. His golden eyes had lost their anger, replaced by something softer. "Your mother," Velanus said quietly. "She did not survive." Jake shook his head. None of the elders did. They were too deeply woven into the old universe. When it collapsed, they collapsed with it. Only the young ones made it through, and many of us lost our memories in the sleep. I was one of the lucky ones. I remembered everything. He picked up the memory keeper from the floor and returned it to his pocket. I have carried that moment with me for 14 billion years. I have lived countless lives on Earth, dying and being reborn, always keeping the memory of what we were. And when I saw that sword in your museum, I saw her face again. I saw her handing me that blade and telling me to remember. The chamber was silent. Finally, Rin spoke. His voice was quiet, almost humble. "I owe you an apology, Jake Holloway. I called your words an insult. But I understand now. What you have carried, what you have remembered, it is more than any of us could bear." Jake managed a small smile. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just a man who lived too long and saw too much. All I want is to be allowed to live as a human, here in this universe, among all of you. That was what we chose. That is what I still choose." Before anyone could respond, the door to the chamber opened. Katie looked up, and her expression changed to one of worry. A human woman stood in the doorway. She was dressed in the same gray uniform as Jake, but her face was pale with alarm. "We have a problem," she said. "Someone on the council has been listening. Word is spreading through the galactic networks. By tomorrow, everyone will know what humanity really is. Jake closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "Then I suppose," he said slowly, "we will have to face whatever comes next." The Galactic Historical Council met in a great hall on a station that orbited a dying star. The star's red light filled the chamber with a warm glow, but there was nothing warm about the mood inside. Representatives from 100 species sat in curved rows, their eyes fixed on the center of the room where Jake and Katie stood alone. Elder Counselor Marath presided over the meeting. He was ancient, even by the standards of his people, his body more machine than flesh after countless centuries of repairs and replacements. His voice, when he spoke, crackled like static from a distant radio. "We have confirmed the humans' claims," Marath said. "Every test we have performed supports his story. The sword, the pendant, the memory recordings. All of it is genuine. Humanity is not what we believe them to be." A wave of whispers swept through the chamber. Jake could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him, some curious, some afraid, some filled with anger. "This changes nothing politically," Ambassador Wren announced, rising from his seat among the Valdori delegation. "Whatever humans were in a previous universe, in this universe they are newcomers. They have no claim to special treatment or ancient territory, but they have knowledge," another representative shouted. "If they remember how to reshape reality itself, they could threaten everything we have built." "We don't want to threaten anyone," Katie said firmly. "That's exactly why we kept the secret for so long." Marath raised a mechanical hand for silence. "The human woman raises an important point. If humanity possesses such power, why have they not used it? Why pretend to be a young species struggling to find their place?" Jake stepped forward. He had been quiet since the meeting began, letting Katie handle most of the talking. But now he could see that words alone would not be enough. These people needed to understand not just what humans could do, but why they chose not to do it. "When we woke up on Earth," Jake said, "we had nothing. No technology, no ships, no weapons. We could have rebuilt everything within a generation. We remembered how. Some of us even wanted to. But we made a choice, all of us who remembered, to leave the old power behind." "Why?" Marath asked. "If you had the ability to become the greatest force in the galaxy, why choose weakness?" "Because we had already been that force," Jake replied. "For millions of years, we shaped the old universe according to our will. We built and destroyed and rebuilt again. We fought wars that lasted centuries. We created wonders that would make your greatest achievements look like children's drawings. And in the end, we learned something important." He paused, looking around the chamber at all the worried faces. "We learned that power without wisdom leads to emptiness. We had everything, and it was not enough. We had forgotten how to be surprised by the universe. We had forgotten how to feel small. We had forgotten how to live. So you gave up everything?" Rin asked. "All that knowledge, all that power?" "We put it away," Katie corrected him. "Hidden in vaults scattered across dimensions, locked behind barriers that only certain humans can open. We agreed that we would not touch that power again unless the survival of all existence was at stake. We would start over, live simple lives, and rediscover what it meant to be mortal." A Thyrany representative, small and insect-like, clicked its mandibles nervously. "But what if someone else finds these vaults? What if the power falls into the wrong hands?" Jake's expression darkened. "That has happened before." The chamber went quiet. Even the whispers stopped. "About 50,000 years ago, by your counting, a species discovered the truth about us," Jake continued. "They were called the Varth. They were intelligent and ambitious, and absolutely convinced that they deserved to control the galaxy. When they learned that humans had access to technology that could rewrite physical laws, they decided to take it." "I have never heard of the Varth," Mara said. "You wouldn't have. They don't exist anymore." Jake's voice was flat, empty of emotion. They captured several hundred humans and tried to force them to open the vaults. They used torture. They used threats. They killed innocent people to prove they were serious. And when that didn't work, they attacked Earth itself, hoping to frighten us into surrender. What happened? Velanus asked. She had been invited to the council as a witness, and she leaned forward with all four hands gripping her seat. We opened one vault, Jake said quietly. Just one. We used a single device for less than a second, and the Varith were erased from existence. Not killed, erased. Every trace of them, every record, every memory. They simply never existed. The only reason I can tell you about them now is that I was there, and I remember. The horror in the chamber was almost physical. Species who had fought wars and conquered planets looked at Jake with naked fear. We swore after that day that we would never use the vaults again, Jake continued. We buried them deeper, sealed them tighter, and spread out across Earth so that no enemy could capture enough of us to threaten the rest. That sword in the museum was lost during the Vorth conflict. It was stolen by raiders and traded across the galaxy until it ended up in the Grand Archives, forgotten. Rin's blue face had gone pale. And yet you tell us this now. You reveal your secret and invite the galaxy to fear you. Why? Because the secret is already out, Katie answered. Someone leaked the information from this very council. By now, every species with a communication network knows what humanity really is. We cannot put that knowledge back in the box. All we can do is hope that you understand. Understand what? Marith asked. Jake met the elder counselor's eyes. That we are not your enemies. We are not gods pretending to be mortals. We are simply people who made a choice, a very long time ago, to experience the universe as something new again. We wanted to explore and learn and make friends and sometimes make mistakes. We wanted to live, truly live, not as masters of reality, but as part of it. He spread his hands, showing his empty palms. I have no weapons. I have no ships. I have nothing but the memories in my head and the hope that you will let us continue to be what we chose to be. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, Marith nodded his ancient head. I believe you, he said. But belief is not enough. There will be those who fear you. There will be those who want your power for themselves. What will you do when they come? Before Jake could answer, an alarm began to blare. Red lights flashed across the chamber walls. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a map of dimensional space. Security breach, a mechanical voice announced. Unknown parties have penetrated the outer barriers of Vault 7. Response protocols activated. Katie grabbed Jake's arm. Her face was white with shock. Vault 7, she whispered. That's where we keep the reality engines. Jake looked at the map, at the tiny markers showing intruders moving toward the most dangerous technology humans had ever created. I guess we'll find out what we do, he said grimly, right now. The gateway to Vault 7 opened in a place that should not have existed. It was a fold in space, a pocket between dimensions where the normal laws of physics held no power. The air itself seemed uncertain, shifting between states of matter like water, unable to decide whether to freeze or boil. Jake stepped through first, his pendant glowing with soft light. Behind him came Katie, then Director Velanus, who had insisted on witnessing whatever happened next. A small team of security officers followed, their weapons drawn, though Jake had warned them that guns would be useless here. By all the stars, Velanus whispered as she looked around. The vault was enormous, stretching in every direction farther than the eye could see. Machines of impossible design floated in the space around them, some larger than cities, some small enough to fit in a palm. They pulsed with colors that had no names, and they hummed with a power that made Velanus's silver skin vibrate. "These are the things you left behind?" she asked. "Some of them," Jake replied. "The rest are hidden in other vaults, scattered across a dozen dimensions. This particular vault holds the reality engines, devices that can rewrite the fundamental laws of physics within a limited area. In the wrong hands, they could unmake stars, or create pocket universes, or simply erase anything that displeases their user." Katie pointed ahead, toward a cluster of activity near the largest machine. "There, I see them." The intruders were Tessari, at least 20 of them, wearing armor and carrying cutting tools that sparked against the vault's protective barriers. They had reached the central platform where the primary reality engine sat, its surface covered with symbols that glowed like dying embers, and leading them was a face that made Volanus gasp. "That is Counselor Davin Tessari," she said. "Ambassador Rin's brother." Jake nodded grimly. "I suspected the leak came from someone in the council. It seems Rin's family is divided on how to deal with humanity." They approached slowly, making no effort to hide. The Tessari guards spotted them immediately and raised their weapons, but Davin held up a hand to stop them from firing. "Jake Holloway," Davin said. His voice was smooth and confident, nothing like his brother's thunder. "I wondered if you would come yourself, or send someone else to do your dirty work." "I don't have anyone else," Jake replied. "And I don't do dirty work." "What are you doing here, Davin?" Davin smiled, spreading his arms to indicate the vault around them. "What does it look like?" "I am claiming humanity's legacy for myself. This technology should not be hidden away, hoarded by a species too afraid to use it. With these machines, I could bring order to the galaxy. I could end wars, cure diseases, shape reality to create a perfect civilization." "You could also destroy everything that exists," Katie said. "Those machines are not toys. They require training that takes longer than your entire species has existed. I am a fast learner." Jake shook his head sadly. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. These devices were built by people who had millions of years to study the foundations of reality. Even we made mistakes with them. Terrible mistakes. And you think you can just take them and figure it out?" Davin's smile faded. "I think that you have no choice but to let me try. My guards have weapons pointed at your friends. My technicians are moments away from breaking through the final barrier. If you try to stop us, people will die." For a long moment, Jake said nothing. He simply looked at Davin with an expression of profound exhaustion, like a parent watching a child reach for a flame dot. Then he spoke a single word in a language that had not been heard in 14 billion years. The vault responded. The floating machines shifted in the air. The symbols on their surfaces blazed with sudden light. And from the shadows between dimensions, figures began to emerge. They looked like humans, but not quite. Their bodies were made of light and mathematics, their faces calm and ageless. They were the Guardians, ancient artificial minds, created to protect the vaults from exactly this kind of intrusion. The Tessari guards opened fire, but their weapons did nothing. The energy beams passed through the Guardians like light through glass. One of the guards screamed and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. "State your purpose," the lead Guardian said, its voice echoing from everywhere at once. "You have entered a protected space. You have attempted to access sealed technology. You have threatened authorized personnel. These actions are not permitted." Davin's confidence shattered. He stumbled backward, his blue face going pale. "What are these things?" "They are the reason no one has successfully stolen from us before," Jake said quietly. "The Varath tried, and they were erased from history. Others have tried since then and met similar ends. The Guardians are not cruel, but they are absolute. They will give you one chance." The lead Guardian turned its featureless face toward Davin and his followers. "You may leave now, your memories of this place removed, your lives spared. Or you may remain in which case you will cease to exist across all timelines and dimensions. This is not a threat. It is a statement of consequence. Davin looked at Jake with hatred burning in his eyes. You would let them kill us? No, Jake said. I would not let them do anything. They make their own choices. That is why we created them to be independent. All I can do is tell you that they mean exactly what they say. If you try to take this technology, you will not just die. You will never have existed. Your family will not remember you. Your name will vanish from every record. It will be as if you were never born. For a terrible moment, the vault was silent. Then, slowly, Davin lowered his head. We surrender, he whispered. We will leave. The guardians moved aside, creating a path back to the entrance. One by one, the Tazari dropped their weapons and walked toward the gateway, their eyes empty with shock. Davin was the last to go. At the threshold, he turned back to look at Jake. This is not over, he said. Yes, it is, Jake replied. You will not remember any of this. You will go back to your life and wonder why you feel so empty for the next few weeks. And eventually, even that feeling will fade. Davin opened his mouth to respond, but the gateway flashed, and he was gone. The guardians turned to Jake and bowed their luminous heads. The vault is secure. Do you wish to issue any additional instructions? No, Jake said. Seal it again. Make the barriers stronger, and thank you for not killing them. The choice was theirs. They chose wisely. The guardians faded back into the spaces between dimensions, and the vault grew quiet once more. Katie let out a breath she had been holding for too long. That was too close. Velanis was trembling, her forearms wrapped around herself. The power you possess. If you wanted it, you could control everything. You could rule the galaxy without opposition. Jake walked over to her and placed a gentle hand on her arm. And that is exactly why we choose not to. Power like this corrupts absolutely. It makes you forget what matters. We learned that lesson a long time ago, and we swore never to forget it again. He looked around the vault one last time, at the machines that could reshape stars and rewrite the laws of physics. Then he turned his back on all of it and walked toward the gateway. Let's go home, he said. 3 days later, Jake stood in the Grand Archives Museum, looking at the sword behind its glass case. The placard had been changed. It now reads simply, On Loan from Humanity. Velanis approached from behind, her footsteps soft on the polished floor. You could take it back, you know. It belongs to you. Jake shook his head. It belongs here. This is where it ended up after 14 billion years of traveling. Maybe that means something. Maybe the universe wanted it to be found, wanted this story to be told. He touched the glass gently with his fingertips. Besides, I think my mother would have liked this. Her gift, preserved and honored by people who never knew her. That's a kind of immortality, isn't it? Velanis stood beside him in silence for a moment. Then she asked, What will you do now? Jake smiled, a real smile this time, tired but genuine. The same thing I've been doing for 300,000 years. Live, explore, try to understand this universe and my place in it. Maybe make some friends along the way. He stepped back from the display case and turned toward the exit. That's all any of us can do, really. Whether we're 1 billion years old or 1 billion seconds old. We're all just trying to find meaning in the time we have. He walked away through the museum, past the ancient starships and the preserved remains of extinct species, past the weapons from forgotten wars and the treasures of 1,000 civilizations. Just another human, moving through a galaxy full of wonders, carrying the weight of eternity with nothing but a pendant around his neck and a lifetime of memories in his heart. Outside, the purple sky of Celestin Prime stretched toward the horizon, and somewhere, In a vault between dimensions, guardians kept watch over the power that humanity had chosen to leave behind.